Welcome aboard, Trek fans. Today we're diving into one of the funniest and most heartfelt episodes of Strange New Worlds yet. Season 2, Episode 5, Charades. What happens when Spock suddenly becomes fully human right before a high-stakes Vulcan dinner with T'Pring's parents? Awkward silences, emotional chaos, and a whole lot of hijinks. But beneath the laughs, this episode hits deep with themes of identity, love, and being true to yourself. Let's break it all down. All right. An alien accident makes Spock fully human. What does human Spock reveal that Vulcan Spock usually keeps buried deep? Tell you.
Oh my goodness. So quite a hijinks. I love the fact that you used that word and even though you didn't ask beforehand, before watching this episode, I'd never heard of hijinks before. And so when I found out what it was, I was like, oh my God, this is so appropriate. Um, so Vulcan Spock is super polished, super buttoned up. Everything is logic. And human Spock is, as they kind of refer to it in the show, like an adolescent boy. You know, his appetite is insatiable. Everything gets under his skin, and he speaks on it. And so this was one of the funniest episodes I've seen. I am a huge Spock fan, especially with this particular character that is playing the role of Spock. I love watching him. He is just adorable. I could just eat him up. But seeing him so vulnerable and going through this range of emotions, I was amused, but I also felt kind of bad for him at the same time because he couldn't help it. He absolutely could not help it. And so I'm not entirely sure if I answered the question the way in which the question was designed for. But for me, this human Spock, there's no holds barred. He's going to say and do whatever he is thinking, just very reactive, and I'm getting excited as I'm talking about it because just even thinking about him with Sam Kirk, like I understood as a Virgo, I felt like Spock is a Virgo. And the things that that Sam Kirk was doing, and ordinarily, Spock could just eat it, he'll be fine, and we're gonna go with the logic, and so we're gonna leave it alone. But human Spock lost it. Like, you know what? Do you not see?
It will hurt you.
So I love that, and because it put a very jovial aura over the entire human experience, like the things that we go through with the range of emotions that can just change in an instant. Like 1 minute you're super excited, everything is funny, and then someone decided to eat a piece of toast and there are crumbs all over the place, and you're about to have a meltdown. And so
I really love the moment when he and the captain were cooking and he was just like, stop. What is this that I smell? It's bacon. And Vulcans are vegetarians. And he just kept eating the bacon, baby. He was like, what?
This has been out here and I've been deprived. And I mean, look, I have an unhealthy relationship with pork. So I understood, like, oh, Spock, baby, you might need to pull back on that. But hey, it like
I especially love the moment when he was sitting with the women. By the way, this was the first time that I like counted. Like there are like 6 women on this crew that are like part of the cast to 3 men. That has never happened in Star Trek. But anyway, Spock was seated with these women who were like engaged in the conversation, and they were laughing, just dying laughing, which by itself, I didn't even hear the joke, but the fact that they were laughing, that by itself just made me want to laugh. But it was like in that moment that Spock realized what humor was, and he got it. But it was like the extremes of being human. It was like, I get it, and then he started hitting people, like, you know what I'm saying? And human Spock is very touchy-feely. Did you notice that in this particular episode? And what I mean by touchy-feely is he likes to touch people. He likes to touch people, which is not a Vulcan thing, but it's a very human thing, especially for Spock. So I deeply enjoyed that.
I would have loved to be in that episode.
Moving further with that, Spock has to pretend to be Vulcan in front of his fiance's family while being fully human. How does this dinner scene mix comedy with serious commentary about cultural assimilation and pressure?
Listen. Okay. So let's get into this. So first of all, Spock is in this entire debacle because he was being a great friend. And so there's that. No good deed goes unpunished. How human is that? So there's that. But when his future in-laws come in and he is human and having to play the game, first of all, let's address his mother. Okay, his mother is fully human, married to a Vulcan, and so she's been exposed to this entire different cultural system, cultural norms, or just nothing like humanity. So she's been immersed and emerged into all of that, to where Spock is a little bit different in essence. And so when they have this sit down, oh my God, he's so adamant about not embarrassing T'Pring or his family. You know, they end up, and I love the crew. I'm all over the place and I'm sorry for that. But I love the crew because they come up with ways in which to try to pass it off as he's still Vulcan. But I love the teamwork there. I love it, love it, love it. But anyway, he does his very best to still come off as if nothing has happened because he doesn't want to embarrass T'Pring, doesn't want to embarrass his family, doesn't want to embarrass himself. And so the Vulcans come off as very snobbish, especially the mom, very just intolerant of everything. And our culture is better than yours. And so when we talk about assimilation, you know, you see it with the mom, specifically Spock's mom is who I'm referring to. Hey, we don't want to offend them. This is how you need to do this. This is how you need to do that. Although you're dealing with being human right now, because I know you want to marry this person. So I'm going to help you get through it. And so that assimilation piece is huge because when you're an outsider, and I can speak as a Black woman, if you go into, I grew up in a predominantly white town, you know, wanting to ensure that you're accepted. Then you throw love in the mix, you have a whole nother debacle. And so, although it was funny, you know, you're watching Spock basically with an adolescent type brain, trying to swallow his pride and not be reactive to T'Pring's, specifically his mother, T'Pring's mother, more so coming for his throat more than the dad, trying to just swallow everything and eat it up. And you can see him basically like a rhinoceros with the smoke coming out of his ears and nose, trying to be quiet. that was funny. But at the same time, you empathize with him because it's like he cannot help his nature. And so why would you judge him so harshly or be intolerant and even just kind of elitist? You know, humans are peons. They're nothing, you know, so I don't want you with my daughter. You know, there was just so many things at play here. So where it was comical, but the way in which they wrote it and it played out, you know, both things resonated. You got the humor and then you have the seriousness of this, because who can change their nature? You can't.
Yeah, it was that moment when, speaking of assimilation, when Amanda had to hold the teapot. She's teaching Spock how to hold the teapot. It's scalding her, and she's performed in this function for decades now. So she has learned how to deal with the pain of it, and she's teaching Spock. And then we see in that particular moment when he has to pour the tea, the look on his face was like, oh my fucking God. And, and the captain is like quietly reassuring him. And then he has to put the teapot back down and he's like, oh. It's like that's a lot of pressure, for one person to take, and it's ultimately leading him closer and closer to understanding the space that his mother had to live. And I thought that was very poignant. Okay.
I love and just to throw it out there, I love what you just said. The pain of her holding that teapot, it had a duality, not just the physical pain, but the emotional, like, oh my God, this is tearing me up mentally and physically, but I love this person. And so I'm willing to go through it.
All right, so let's move just a little bit. We are still talking about Spock. All right, so what does Spock? Well, no, let's do this. Was it a relief, a burden, or both for him to let go of logic? Relief, burden, both.
Listen, I am a perpetual fence straddler when it comes to some of these things. And so I am gonna go with a little bit of both.
Explain.
A relief because he's so polished and so buttoned up that he misses out on that beautiful thing that humans do called fucking up and it being okay. You make mistakes, whatever. You say, hey, I'm human. We say it all the time. And so you don't have to be as poised and perfect and logical all the time. You can literally just breathe and just be. And hey, blame it on humanity, because guess what? We're not perfect. We don't 100% deal in logic or 100% deal in anything. It's a melting pot of fuckery when it comes to humanity. It is. And so, to quote one of my favorite things that Regina King said on Poetic Justice, don't you know that the world is a big place for us to go out and fuck up in it? Hey, listen, you're going to make some mistakes. So I think it was a relief for him to lay those types of things down and just be. I feel like it was a burden because although you are part human, part Vulcan, the Vulcan side is dominant. And so you have to dispel everything Vulcan that you know in order to show up as a human. That's got to be a burden. Like, and then you still have to please her parents and all of these things, knowing that this freak accident happened and you're not functioning the way that you used to function. So that has to be a burden because you're having to unlearn and learn at the same time. So I think it was a little bit of both.
Okay. All right. So let's jump to the character of Christine Chapel. Christine is offered a prestigious fellowship, but is clearly conflicted. Why do you think that is?
The Vulcans. Well, she has the fellowship. She has the opportunity for the fellowship. She is wanting to advance herself. She doesn't want to be boxed in, but at the same time, there's a certain comfort that comes with being a part of Starfleet, their family. So I would imagine that in the background, she's dealing with some of that. But the Vulcans are ruthless. Like, my goodness. Like, I wanted to read them for pure filth for her. They pissed me off. And when I say they, it was one representative, but I'm going to call them that. And so she has the right to want to advance herself and to do a bit more. Ultimately, in the end, she realized they weren't a good fit for her. And I appreciated that piece because let's be clear, Chapel is cold. She is. She really is. And so I absolutely love her character. I do.
Okay. So Chapel confesses her feelings in a way that only Spock could emotionally reciprocate. Does this make their moment more genuine or more tragic?
So when you say expresses her emotions and
towards the end of the episode.
And your question was, does it make it more
genuine or tragic?
I'm gonna say more genuine than tragic. It is messy, but I'm not gonna give it tragic. I'm gonna say genuine. It's
Why is
like because let's be clear, and I think we talked about this a few episodes back with the axiom of Spock's love for T'Pring versus Dr. Chapel. Um, and so I think it's genuine simply because no matter how hard y'all try to, mute the feelings that you have, it keeps resurfacing. And so whenever you were in a pinch, so to speak, Spock was willing to lay down his life for you. Um, and so you can't keep hiding how you feel about each other. And so Spring is not crazy. She's feeling different things. So she kind of, asked for the space for her and Spock. But I think it's more genuine because they can't seem to turn those feelings off. With all of Spock's logic, he cannot put Chapel away. He can't do it. And neither can she. So I think it's genuine simply because you can't bury it. You can't, work so much or try to friend zone so much to where we don't still have these feelings. And so
I have a quick question, only because you're saying this. Do you think that had he not become a human, do you think he would have continued down that line of I'm only going to deal with T'Pring, I'm not going to mess with Christine, but because I am now a human, I am able to process what I'm feeling in this moment. And even though towards the end of the episode he became more Vulcan, he was still able to go down that road of being with Christine because of that experience of being a human.
I think it would have still happened. I just think it would have happened maybe haphazardly, but I still feel like something would have happened to where it would have, like y'all are star-crossed lovers, literally. Like you can't avoid it. You absolutely can't avoid it. There's not enough logic in the multiverse to stop these two. Like, and mind you, I have minimal Star Trek knowledge, but that's
part of the reason why I'm going,
right. Well, just for where I'm at right now. Okay. And so that's just how I feel about those two. I just think it would happen one way or another. But the human side of him, I feel like just kind of catapulted. Okay, hey, let's figure this out. Let me just kiss you in the mouth because I've been wanting to do this for so many episodes.
Okay, speaking of Vulcan and human love, let's take it back to Amanda, Spock's mother. We talked about her briefly earlier. Amanda walks a tightrope between Vulcan tradition and human compassion. How does her role as mediator and her frustration with Vulcan customs shape the emotional tone of the episode?
So I'm glad that they brought her in. And quick aside, don't kill me because I'm drawing it out longer than I should. I hated her on the L word. I absolutely freaking hated her on the L word as Jenny, but that's another conversation for another day. And I hated her on Vampire Diaries. She is so good at playing a person that you want to choke. She was Elena's mother, Elena's birth mother.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And so, yeah. But anyway, back to this. I'm glad that they put her in play simply because although she is not Vulcan, who can relate better to Spock than his mom? And so not simply because she's his mother, but because she is accustomed to I don't know, do you say a person is a speciesist? Can't call them a racist. She's dealing with that or has dealt with that. Well, dealing because it's present, it's still there. On top of this being your child. And so she has that je ne sais quoi when it comes to being able to get her son to, one, listen to logic and reason, and also still kind of keep their humanity. And so I'm glad that they brought her in, because it's like and I can't say racism, like a reverse speciesism. I don't know, just make up a word. But you empathize with her because she's foreign to them. They don't respect her. They think humans are beneath them, but she loves so hard to where I'm willing to deal with all these things for the person that I love. And so she kind of helps shape the whole scene, because she offers a perspective to where you can empathize with the character being, and for lack of better words, mistreated simply because of their nature. And so she's doing everything in her wheelhouse to be accepted by these people, but it's never enough. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. Speaking of that, speaking of that, je ne sais quoi. How does her patience and quiet strength speak volumes about parenting across cultures?
Oh, child. It does speak volumes, because you have to have the emotional intelligence to deal with, first of all, parenting. Period. You can start there. That's enough of a challenge. But then you throw different cultures and cultural norms and bigotry and all these things into play, but she still remains poised and calm and offers a lighter perspective and is able to reroute and navigate all of the craziness. I think it's amazing. I think she did a great job with allowing things to play out, but at the same time, staying grounded. And okay, these people are this way. There is no changing their mind. I'm going to assimilate to a degree, but hey, I understand how you feel, but understanding that if this is what you want, this is how it has to be. And so I love the realist, hey, yes, teapot is hot. I am willing to scald myself and adjust, because this is what I signed up for. And so
Okay. Still on the subject of Spock, I want to talk about T'Pring for a moment, real quickly. T'Pring's reaction to Spock's deception is calm yet decisive. What does this reveal about her values and expectations in their relationship?
As Vulcan as my girl T'Pring is, and she's so gorgeous. I just love T'Pring. She's amazing. But for me, she feels betrayed. For her, over everything, just be honest. And so it was the distrust, to where she was like, okay, now after this is too much. We're gonna need some space. Her values are centered around honesty. Yes, I am a Vulcan. However, you're my life partner. So no matter what's going on, you should not withhold things from me. And if it was a simple matter of just you wanted to try to work through it on your own, perhaps I would have seen it differently. But all of Starfleet knew what was going on. You didn't at any point give me the opportunity to go one way or another. So that shows me you don't trust me. And so
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. And so I was just saying her values are just based on simple just trust and honesty.
Speaking of honesty, is T'Pring a casualty of his growth, or did she deserve better?
I think she's a casualty. I do. I think she's a casualty of his growth. Not saying that she didn't deserve better, but just to kind of go back to what I was saying earlier, in the same way that Spock is signing up to be in a relationship with T'Pring, she's signing up to be in a relationship with Spock. And so accepting that humans can be flaky. They're not just based in logic. They're emotionally charged as well. And so I think it was a casualty of his growth because he's hyper focused on his Vulcan nature to where when these human situations come into play, he doesn't really know how to navigate that properly. So he's learning. And so I think she's a casualty.
So this particular episode is titled Charades. What masks do each of the characters wear, and when do they finally take them off?
I thought it was hilarious, first of all, that Captain sat up here and was like, "Oh, we have this great human tradition called charades," and so when that happened, I was like, "Oh Lord!" I love when they explain the title within the episode. As far as mask, several characters are playing masks or wearing masks rather in this episode because Supreme is, being super poised and kind of quiet, although she's internally suffering and just over her mother and all the things that she's dealing with. But by the end of it, she kind of checks her mom like, hey, wait a minute. Whenever we do a mind meld, there's basically no judgment required or whatever the language is that she used. And so whereas she's like the child and kind of nodding and going along with everything, wearing that Vulcan mask, by the end of it, she takes it off and comes to Spock's defense. So that was one thing that I noticed. And then with Spock, he is, of course, he gets the little shot by the end of the ceremony or whatever, but he's pretending to be complete Vulcan, well, not complete. He's pretending to still have his Vulcan nature during the ceremony. So he's masking that, going through the motions. But by the end of it, because Supreme's mother has just came at him so hard, he's like, hey, you judge my mother, and humans for being this way. So instead of him just trying to be polite, he literally just unloads how he actually feels to Supreme's mother. So I appreciated that. Like, he has his mask. If I got it together, nothing's bothering me. I'm holding it in. I'm gonna swallow it or whatever. But this is how I really feel. I feel like humans are actually stronger because they have to deal with this.
Mm-hmm. And what about Christine?
Oh, Christine is. I feel
and
like
her masks.
She's done amazing at being with the friend zone. But then ultimately she can't hide it anymore. She's in love with Spock. And so she takes that mask off, like, okay, this is more than just a friendship. We're not homies, like we're really into each other. And also with the fellowship, like, hey, okay, sometimes you win some, you lose some, but by the end of it, you know what? I don't care what you think of me. This is who I am. These are the wonderful things that I'm doing, and you can read about it later.
Last question. How do Spock and Chapel wrestle with this in very different but connected ways?
How do they wrestle with their emotions or affections for one another?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Spock is always kind of running, where Chapel is more open and vulnerable. And again, probably because of their natures. And so they're literally sitting up there playing what appears to be a game of chess. And so that spoke volumes as well, because it's a game of strategy. And so how do we navigate this relationship to where it's going to make sense, but, also throw caution to the wind? And so I feel like Spock is still trying to approach it logically, to where not Supreme, my goodness, make that mistake again, to where Chapel is like, let's just explore. And I could be 100% wrong, but that's how I see it.
How would you rate this particular episode?
Charades on a scale of Mayfair to 10. How always got to start there. It's my barometer. My barometer is always going to start with Mayfair because it's a negative. For me, the episode was probably about around an 8.5. It kept my attention. I love the little zingers. It was funny, but you could also still apply it to humanity, honestly. And if you're in a relationship and dealing with other people's parents, and so it's about an 8.5. It's pretty up there for me. I enjoyed the episode quite a bit.
For me, I would give it a 10, and let me explain why. It was full of comedy, which is not something that we would expect from Star Trek. And this particular show, Strange New Worlds, it includes a fair amount of comedy, whereas some of the other shows didn't really. It was all about drama, right? But in this particular episode, comedy was all there for the taking in almost every scene. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the connections that you didn't really realize it, but there are a lot of connections in this particular episode to other episodes throughout Star Trek history. So I enjoyed that. It was well paced. Another thing that I really, really loved was the character development all throughout this particular episode. Something else that I really, really love about the later Treks, especially Strange New Worlds, they really want to develop all of their characters, not just the top 2 or 3, but everybody that's part of the cast. They're trying to develop that, even to the extent that they're developing James T. Kirk. They're doing that, right? I enjoy it. I love it. It brings so much character and richness into the universe of Star Trek. And so that's why I gave this one a 10.
That is very rare for you. Very rare. I love it.
I think that is part of the reason why Strange New Worlds is considered one of the best of Star Trek. I do. But anyway, thank you all so very much for joining us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share on all your social media. Until next time, see you. Welcome back, Starfleet crew. Today we're decoding Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 6, Lost in Translation. When Uhura starts seeing things no one else can, the line between communication and madness gets dangerously blurry. At a mysterious alien presence, a gas station in space, and the debut of James T. Kirk on the Enterprise. Yeah, this one's loaded. Let's unpack the mystery, the grief, and the connections that go far deeper than words. Hell yeah. Lost in Translation. Real quick, when you saw this particular title, what were your thoughts?
Ooh, my everyday life. And how my communication does not always land. And so Lost in Translation, my goodness.
Okay. So speaking of translation, let's start with Uhura. Uhura experiences disturbing visions and sounds. How does the show use psychological horror to drive the plot and reveal something deeper about her?
Ooh, okay. So psychological horror, that is a mouthful and a lot to play out on the screen. And so, Uhura is the one that is almost always emotionally constant, right? She has it together. She's a communication specialist, for God's sake. So she doesn't delve in over emotional states. And so to have that stripped away from her, and she's seeing things, okay, so at face value, okay, you automatically thinking she's just exhausted, she just needs to get some rest. But when those hallucinations start, and then you're already in outer space, that is tormenting. And then when you're seeing the types of things that she's seeing, she's still trying to process, making sure she knows how to perform other parts of her job well, and the death of Hammer, who was kind of her sensei. And so fear of doing things wrong, but still trying to show up. But you're seeing literally people being killed at your hands, potentially all of these things going on. So that sets up the plot really well, because you don't know one way or another, hey, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? What is going on? Because I'm essentially sleepwalking. But there are grave consequences because I'm not actually sleepwalking. And so I'm hearing this sound that no one else seems to hear. And so it's like, okay, am I going crazy? Or is this really happening? And so it is definitely psychological torment, because again, like I said, with Ahura, she typically has it all together, just poised. She knows what she's doing, and fairly young. She's got her stuff together. She can only get better. And so I couldn't imagine being the person that always has it together, to where now I'm seeing things and having to seek help for it. And this could potentially, be my demise if I don't figure it out.
I like that you centered on seeking help, because in the original show, I don't know if I don't know if you know this, but in the original show, her, even though she was a cast member, she wasn't the focal point of almost any episode. Like there were very few episodes where she was the focal point. And so seeking help was not something that she ever really did. And so we got to see a part of her personality. We get to see a part of her personality explored. Let's move just a little bit. This episode blends science fiction with mystery and emotion. Were the stakes more personal or professional for the crew?
So just at face value, I'm going to say more professional, simply because they had everything going on with this fueling station. And I guess you probably could commingle that with personal, I guess. But at any rate, you had this fueling station that Captain what is his name?
Kirk?
Not Kirk.
Pike?
Pike was, I guess you can say, being placed in an interim position for that. And so that was huge. That was a huge professional piece for him. And so I think I would lean on more professional because of those types of things. And then with Ahura, trying to go through her digital notes left by Hammer, making sure she gets everything right. That piece. And then you also have James Kirk, that comes into play. And so where he's kind of lighthearted and just an overall friendly guy, professionally, he's just wired to, hey, I need to be able to help people. That's part of what I need to do as part of my profession. And I guess that could be personal as well. And so what I'm getting is mostly professional, but some commingling of personal as well.
Okay. So Ahura's grief over Hammer resurfaces in unexpected ways, which you kind of talked about. How does this episode help her confront her grief?
She can't hide from it. The hallucinations are there. She's seeing him among other frightening things. She needs to lean on his teachings to basically move forward in the professional part, but it's like she can't get away from, seeing his face, hearing his voice, going through the digital notes, the Hammer being backhanded with her, those types of things. And so she has not done great with confronting her grief, with Hammer or otherwise. And so it's in her face. She can't get away from it because she's seeing him. So, that's playing with her mind. So she needs to deal with it because there are bigger things at stake that we find out, later on in the episode.
Okay. Despite being the ship's expert in communication, Ahura struggles to express what's happening to her. What irony or message lies in a communicator being lost in translation herself?
Oh my goodness. Do you ever meet hairstylists and their hair looks a mess? And so that comes to mind like, okay, how the hell you gonna do my hair and yours look tell up, or either the therapist that needs a therapist, and so you have that we unrealistically place these expectations on ourselves and others. You're a communication specialist. You should be, the best at communicating when it comes to your own stuff. No, I am great at doing these things for others. When it comes to self, it's a little bit different. So it is ironic that you specialize in this and you struggle with doing it for yourself. That resonates with me simply because, hey, I can make you sound like you can fly planes and that you saved several universes, and I can write that up in probably 40 seconds flat without ChatGTP. But if you ask me something about myself, I'm gonna stumble. I'm gonna struggle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we're our own worst critic, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
Yeah. Her learns that sometimes connection is more than language. How does this reshape her role in the crew?
For me, it just makes her become less of a robot and
Hmm.
more of a human being, to where you're just going through the motions, performing a job versus performing a duty, you know? And so there's more to your position than just pressing the buttons and communicating. You need that connection.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. You mentioned James Kirk, the redoubtable James Kirk. We get a rare early glimpse of him. How does this version compare to the legendary captain we know? And I don't know how much you know about Captain Kirk, but based on what you can recall.
So ask your question again.
So, how does this version compare to the legendary captain you might recall?
I don't have enough of a knowledge base, I feel like, to answer the question effectively. But based on what I see from this version of Kirk, very approachable, very knowledgeable, friendly, lighthearted, to where everything isn't super serious, but I'm still gonna get the job done. Like, let's be very clear. The job is gonna get done, but it doesn't have to look like let's follow every rule to the letter. Even if we have to bend a little, we're going to get it done. And I'm, more concerned about the whole person as opposed to just Starfleet.
Hmm, interesting. So everything that you said is Captain Kirk. Everything that you said is Captain Kirk. The only thing that I saw that was potentially lacking was the fact that he wasn't in charge. He wasn't in command. When he was working with Uhura, of course, he was a senior officer, so he was in charge. But outside of that, anytime that he was in the presence of the captain, meaning Pike, Pike made decisions. But even in those moments, he looked to Kirk for validation. In other words, he was basically saying, "Is she crazy right now, or should I follow her?"
That's
And it was that quick little head nod that was like, "Nah, you need to do what she's telling you to do." Which, by the way, I was going to say a little bit earlier when you were talking. Uhura, she towards the end of the episode, she said, "Fire the torpedoes," which was not something we ever saw from her. Right, like she was assuming command, but it still took Pike to say, yeah, fire. I thought that was something about her personality as well. I don't know if it was because she was overcome with the fact that all of these beings could die, or it was just something that's part of her personality. That's something that hopefully we will explore a little bit deeper into Strange New Worlds. Next question. Kirk bonds with Uhura over shared loss. How does this episode use vulnerability to build their connection?
so. This episode uses vulnerability to build their connection because Uhura has a wall up. You know, Kirk, from at least how he's been portrayed over the couple of episodes he's been in, um, doesn't seem to have an issue connecting with people, or doing those things. And so for Uhura, that was huge because she revealed a very, very vulnerable part of herself, dealing with her loss and her grief to this person essentially she just met. And so um, getting her to display that kind of emotion to Kurt over a shared loss was major because I feel like it kind of helped her move forward a bit and be okay with, hey, you need to grieve. It's okay to have these feelings.
Mm, mm, mm. Speaking of these feelings and possibly grief, Sam Kirk and James Kirk have clear tension. These are the brothers, right? They have clear tension. What does this sibling dynamic add to the episode?
It adds humanity yet again because it's a very real thing that exists. That's why I call it sibling rivalry. But how you can be in the same family and have different aspirations, different goals, different perspectives, viewpoints, however you want to lay it out, and you never really know what the other person is experiencing or feeling until you put it out there and have the conversation. And so it's like, on the one hand, one may think that Sam is jealous of James until you look at it from a different vantage point, that being that of Sam's vantage point or viewpoint, like, hey, no, our father felt like this is what success looked like, so there's a whole other layer to that of people pleasing, specifically within your family unit, and it's still not being enough. And so I appreciated that because that was very, very real. I know lots and lots of families that I know personally to where that is a real thing. It's ugly, it's uncomfortable, but I'm glad that they put it on film. I am glad because both were, in essence, successful, just in different ways, different paths.
Yeah. To the point where, like, Sam Kirk basically says, "I'm on the Enterprise, you're not." And I was like, and in Star Trek, to be on the Enterprise, that's like a coveted position to be in. And he was on the Enterprise. It took basically the demise of Pike in order for Kirk to end up with the Enterprise. But we're gonna see that a little bit later. I want to talk about this season's edition, Pelia. She is my absolute favorite character. Okay, so Pelia's presence is quirky but quietly wise. What does she bring to the crew's dynamic, especially in moments of crisis or confusion?
She brings that wisdom because she's been around for 30 billion years. She brings that. So there's that overall wisdom coupled with her knowledge, again, not just from being around for so long, but she's trained, taught a lot of these people. So there's that. And she is unafraid of calling people out, no matter their position. And so we saw that play out between her and number one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciated that because she read her. She called her out and still turned around and did what she wanted to do. Didn't care about not following orders or whatever because she can see the bigger picture. So, okay, what is it that you're going to do to me if I don't follow these orders? So I love the arrogance that she has kind of thrown in there with everything. But it is, like you said, it's also, it's funny because she's so quirky and she'll say something really shitty to you. And it's like, do I laugh or do I cry?
I love her because of the comic relief that she brings to so many different not segments, but whatever it's called, scenes. These scenes are like, they're supposed to be like in your face, but she turns it, as you said, and she makes it like a funny moment. There was one particular moment where number one was basically saying, "Hey, you've been in Starfleet longer than I've been alive, and I'm the first officer of the Enterprise, and look at where you are." But it reminded me that in a certain way, she needed to be exactly where she was in order for a couple of things. In a previous episode, had she not been there, La'an wouldn't have known to seek her out, to get her back to where she was. And so that goes to the wisdom that you were speaking of. Nah, she had to be where she was, or their universe would not exist. So that's that wisdom, right? She had to be in a certain place at a certain time in order for things to happen. And who knows what's going to happen with her character? Who knows whether or not she needs to be there in order to save them again? Who knows? We don't know, right? We literally we don't know. It might be that they replace her, but my sincere hope is that they bring her back for season 3. I hope for it. All right, so let's move on. How does in my estimation, being misunderstood is the theme of this particular episode. In my estimation, it might not be yours. How does the theme of being misunderstood play out across the alien signal, Uhura's grief, and the crew's relationship? How does that play out?
Ooh. So overarching, literally lost in translation. Like, sometimes you feel like all the signs are there and you know exactly what's happening, only to find out that you were 100% wrong. And so I don't know how in depth I can go with answering the question, but I will say for her, not potentially, she's typically got it all together. And so I don't think anyone was prepared for her to just kind of decline the way that she did, at least for how they saw it. And so because I'm so used to you showing up this way, I misunderstand. I think you got it together when really you're struggling. You're still grieving. I see you every day, but I don't know the battles that you're facing when you go to bed at night. And so, she's that piece is lost in translation as it pertains to her being one of the crew members and being misunderstood. Just does she want to be super serious all the time? No, she doesn't. She has this, I guess, this sense of duty that she has to be this way, but she doesn't necessarily want that. And so there's that piece of being misunderstood. Then you have Kirk's brother, Sam Kirk. He is misunderstood by his family because his father doesn't basically think what he's doing is good enough. There's that. And then they didn't have La'an very present in this episode, but she's another one that's misunderstood. And so to me, that kind of helps move things along because it gives each of these characters, and I can go on and give an example of everyone being misunderstood, but it has to have an end. But at any rate, I think they did a really good job of making these characters relatable because at some point or another, we've all been misunderstood. I could be sitting in a classroom and seeming so engaged and so focused, and I'm literally singing Hickory Dickory Dock in my head and have not one single thing that you've said. And I'm serious. And so perception is everything. It's very easy to misunderstand people.
Okay. All right. So what does this episode say about the value of empathy in a world driven by data, duty, and logic?
So for me, this episode is saying that you should always, and I know that they're in outer space, but allow people the space to be human first. And I know I probably shouldn't just say human because there are other species present, but since that's my reference point, I'm going to just say that. Allow people to just be first. And logic doesn't and cannot explain everything. And so people are going to disappoint. They're going to get some things wrong. and it's typically deeper than what's on the surface. So give them an opportunity. That's why I said, Uhura, she's seen but unseen.
Mm, mm, mm. Okay. Is connection just about information or something deeper?
Oh no, it is much, much deeper. Um, you can have all the information, and I won't get too much into my professional job duties, but I'll suffice it to say paperwork. I can look at paper and read something about an individual versus when that individual shows up and how I connect with them versus what I read on that paper, almost never the same thing. And so connection is more important than just information because information can be biased depending on where the information is coming from.
And how do you make those connections?
Um, Conversations, conversations are either just proximity, right? And so just being around someone, even if you're not saying a whole lot, your body language, or even how you interact with other people, can be a way to connect. Because, hey, I may be giving off something that you don't particularly like or want to be around, but just watching how you show up around others or even just observing you, like I said, in proximity. You could just be eating your lunch near me and I may notice 5 different things about you just in having that proximity.
Okay. All right. And how would you rate this particular episode from Mayfair to 10?
From Mayfair to 10. This episode, simply because I had to do a crash course on it. It's probably still around an 8 for me. It it wasn't one of my favorite episodes, but it was still enjoyable. Like I appreciated that. Like you mentioned, Strange New Worlds is doing a stellar job of going into each character. And so the fact that Uhura had this episode, and you were able to unpack some of her things and some of her traumas, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that. And then still, having someone take the time to look deeper, someone who's not even a part of the enterprise to come in and see her, to the point to where she initially thought he was coming on to her. He was like, whoa, this is not what I'm doing. And I love the piece where she was hallucinating and she punched him in the nose. That was so funny to me. But yeah, so.
I really like the fact that he didn't like rest on his status, being a commander or whatever position he has right now. He didn't want to rat her out. He didn't want to put her on what's it called, a court martial for hitting a superior officer. He was just like, let's get to the bottom of this, and that is the James Kirk that I know. You know what I'm saying? Like he was putting his newfound friendship first, and he was putting his position second. And he was like, let's get down to the nitty gritty of whatever this is, because this whatever this is more important than relying upon Starfleet standards. I thought that was cool. And so for me, I would give this particular episode an 8. Potentially 8.5, but I'm gonna land squarely on 8.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fact that my rating was near yours, I feel like okay, soon enough I'm gonna be a tricky guy. I'm getting there. The hazing period has been tolerable. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
I like the fact that you're starting from the beginning. By starting from the beginning, you get towards the beginning, you're getting a whole lot. You're getting a whole lot, and you don't even realize
it. I've been enjoying it.
Well, good. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, see you.